It sits on the hill overlooking the old high school football field. It didn't start life as an iconic work of art, and yet over the years it has handsomely transitioned into just that. Anybody who attended the old high school or even attended a football game at the old high school will probably recall the beloved inn. So let's take a trip to the Northwest High School Inn. But before we do, let's stop in at the Good Deeds Coffee Shop in Cedar Hill. Laura Massey Manansala, a Northwest High graduate, operates the business. And Laura earned the Lionbytes Plug of the Week because of her tireless work on behalf of both the community and our R1 school district. Thank you, Laura, for all your efforts. How our letter came to be is an interesting story. Unfortunately, many of the details have been lost over the years. Maybe hearing this broadcast will jog a memory or two, and a bit more of the story will reveal itself. In 1961, many of the things we take for granted today had not yet come to pass. There were very distinct delineations between the roles of males and females. The pep club at the time was reserved for girls only. The boys, as much as they might have wanted to cheer on their Lions, were not allowed membership into this gender-specific school club. I guess at some point the wheels of progress gained traction, because starting in 1962, boys would be allowed as members in the pep club. But like most negotiations, it was not without its conditions. Foremost, girls could hold leadership positions in the club, not boys, a rule that would be swept aside in just a few short years. And second, the boys would have to earn their way into membership. They would earn acceptance with toil, with sweat equity. They would build a monument to the school. Specifically, they would build an inn on the hill behind the home team football field. That inn would, through the coming years, stand watch over countless gym classes, football games, track meets, and its fair share of graduation ceremonies. The inn would indelibly etch its lines into the memory of almost every kid who attended school in that sleepy House Springs Valley. Building this inn would be no easy task. To say the hill is steep is quite an understatement. Even before one ascends the difficult grade, a creek must be crossed. That hill is quite rocky as well, and when wet, the hill is almost impossible to climb. This would be no easy task, but it was a task that the Northwest High School boys were ready and willing to tackle. These kids would dig, carry materials, and construct that inn under much less than ideal conditions. Having carried some of the things we used to resurrect the inn gave us a tremendous amount of respect for what those kids accomplished. Although in truth, we too were probably much better suited for the task at 16 years than we were at 70 years. Well, the NHS boys completed their project and gave the inn a place upon that hillside. That inn occupied that space in majestic fashion throughout the years, being both revered and ignored depending upon the mood of the onlookers. It was cleaned only by the rainfall and received very little tender loving care throughout the years. Once in a while the inn received a fresh coat of paint. Unfortunately, the blue and white paint was usually to recoat the rival colors laid down by a competing local school. The green and gold of Lindbergh was discovered during the inn's restoration, as was an ample amount of black and red. The story is told that these unsolicited paint jobs generally occurred just prior to the homecoming football games. Through the years, other than the occasional coat of paint, the inn received very little in return for all it gave to the R1 district. As time passed, the inn fell farther and farther into disrepair. Yet because it was not something in close view, and because the once bustling high school campus was now a middle school, few, if any, noticed that the components of the inn were slowly becoming one with the hillside it called home. A while back, a couple of classmates decided to do a good deed by trimming the weeds that were starting to hide the inn. A close look at the inn made very clear its need for major renovation. It was apparent that the iconic symbol of our district was in need of far more than some weed eating. Thankfully, the NHS Class of '72 reunion committee was starting to realize that even though their 50-year reunion was a huge hit, the committee members needed another project to work on and to talk about. We old people talk much more than we work. And so it began. First, the existing paint was removed with wire wheels and elbow grease. Next was the stabilization of the existing footprint and repairs to the damaged areas. Then missing blocks were replaced. And finally, with the direction of Kim Fisher, he and Don Rusin applied an acrylic plaster compound over nylon mesh covering the entire surface. The duo was kept supplied with materials by the almost heroic efforts and hill climbing skills of Rich Steger, while Mark Nelson was busy mixing the materials for the project. After allowing the acrylic subsurface to fully cure and to allow time to make sure the surface was tough enough to move forward, the finished coat was applied. We ended up settling on a urethane truck bed liner material as the final surface. NHS graduate Larry Kelso of Performance Auto Coatings in Murphy graciously pigmented, mixed, and donated the NHS navy blue and brilliant white colors, which would finally bring the inn back to its deserved look of prominence. That coating was applied with the leadership and efforts of NHS graduate Brian Layton, along with his son, Northwest graduate Tyler Layton. Since the completed renovation, we're putting a mesh weed barrier around the inn as a border. Over the mesh fabric will be a geocell gravel pocket system in the hopes that the weeds will finally call a truce for at least a few years. Once the inn was painted, it became clear that the line of sight to our beloved letter needed to be once again opened up. For that, Mr. Tyler Layton again stepped up to the plate and performed some tree climbing, rope swinging, and chainsaw magic tricks. The gravel for the inn's border was donated to the project by the local and very community-minded Winter Brothers Materials Company and was hauled free of charge to the work site by Paul Bonacker of Bonacker's Trucking Company. Though the border isn't complete at the time of this Lionbytes episode, we can all take satisfaction knowing our beloved inn is likely going to outlive most of us. I have to say that no one who was involved with the restoration project of the inn had any clue as to just how genuinely revered our letter truly is. The interest that the restoration garnered on Facebook when an update about the inn was posted completely surprised everybody involved. We began to get a sense of just how huge a part of the NHS mindset the N really is. When you letter in sports or music at other schools, it is represented by the school's letter. I get that, but Northwest has a monumental N, a huge N that belongs to each and every Lion, to each and every student. That N is a part of us, and we a part of the N. That N is forever etched in our mind's eye. There is much truth in the old saying, once a lion, always a lion. Well, I reckon we kicked this can called a story about as far as we could kick it. We sure hope you've enjoyed this one, so we'll close it out. Season 1, Episode 2. Remember to like and subscribe if you could be so kind. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep your pride close to your heart.